Grab a cuppa, get comfortable, and let's dive straight in. Welcome to BPD Raw on the couch. Today I'm joined by Jamie, a pharmacist, writer, and trauma survivor who was diagnosed with BPD and complex PTSD as an adult. She's the creator of Beyond the Spiral app, the writer of the Unclenching Project, and a volunteer with Emotions Matter. Her work is all about helping people understand BPD, heal from the deep trauma, and learn how to live fully as themselves, even when the journey gets messy. Jamie, welcome to the couch.
Thank you.
If you
Thanks for
could,
having me.
no problem. If you could tell us a little bit about your life and your journey, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So, thinking about my mental health journey, I wanted to just explain a little about some of the things that have happened to me in my background that I think shaped the way that my nervous system ended up today. I was raised by a very violent alcoholic who took me from my birth mom and was domestically abusive towards my adopted mom. And we moved quite a bit, about 17 times, the first 17 years of my life, so at least once a year. We never had a lot of stable family or friends around due to that. I had some siblings. There were six of them, but they only lived with me. Only two of them ever lived with me, and it was for very few years of my life. So they were kind of in and out and not really stable portions of my life growing up. So it was mostly just my dad, my adopted mom, and I. And my dad later also ended up doing things like taking money away from me when I got into different colleges. The year that I graduated, he ended up spending all of the money that we had for college on commodities futures. So instead of going to New York University, I ended up going to a college I did enjoy in Louisiana. But after that 17 years of chaos growing up, and also growing up bisexual in the rural United States in the 1990s, there wasn't a lot of acceptance. So I had to pretty much hide my feelings at home, where they were used against me. They would be used as reasons my dad would drink, or my mom would get upset about something, so I learned to mask a lot there. And then at school, I couldn't really share my true self. If I had shared that I was bisexual in the South, that there were lots of bullying and abuse back then towards people in that community. So pretty much kept to myself internally growing up, and it was so much that oftentimes teachers even wrote on report cards, does she even talk to anybody? So I did really well in school. I think I masked and compensated that way. It was a way for me to feel good about myself and to kind of think of a way to get out of the craziness. But when I got to college, I dated my first serious boyfriend, and when he broke up with me, it really triggered that first experience I'd had with attachment panic and fear of abandonment. And so when it triggered, that's when I started realizing I'm not quite like everyone else that I know. The other girls that I knew, they would break up with boyfriends, and they'd be sad for maybe a month, but 6 months after this breakup, I was still crying every day, so much so that the boy even asked me to stop crying for him. Someone else asking me to mask because he thought people were getting mad at him because I was crying. So it got so bad that I did end up dropping out of school after 2 years. And at that point, I made a decision to return to my dad. I didn't have a lot of people in my life, and I could go live with him while I tried to get my mental health together. But unfortunately, when I moved back in with him, I found some child sexual abuse material on his computer. I was around 20 at that point, and it really devastated my mental health even more, as I'm sure you can understand, I went to a psychologist afterwards, thinking that it would be helpful to me to figure out what I should do with that information. And unfortunately, the psychologist, instead of helping me or making a plan with me, panicked and said, "Oh my God, do you think he's hurting anyone now? What should I do?" And so it was asking me, the 20-year-old, how to handle that situation about her own father. And so I remember just saying, "Oh no, I'm sure he's not doing it anymore," because by then I had told him I found it, and he said he lied to me and said that it was someone had sent it and he had accidentally opened it. And so that I took his lies kind of being like I had my whole life, the truth, and went with that, even though on the inside I knew it probably wasn't true. But I went home after meeting with that psychologist, and about a month later, my next boyfriend broke up with me, and it all compiled, and I finally did make a first serious suicide attempt. I'd had ideation pretty much my whole life at that point. But around 21, I just couldn't really handle it anymore. After I made that attempt, ironically, my dad found me, and I took a year and got a little bit back on track. But about a year later, the FBI raided our apartment because he was distributing that type of material. So not just looking at it, was actually selling it. So he ended up going to prison for 5 years in 2006. And so during that time, I had a nice resurgence and went through pharmacy school and met my now husband. We've been together 23 years now. So BPD relationships can last a long time too. Just a hope out there for everyone. But anyway, after pharmacy school, my dad did get out of prison, and he started stalking me a bit, but I was able to kind of keep him at a distance. And I was pretty stable until 2018. So I didn't get diagnosed with BPD at that time, but in 2018, I was held hostage by somebody that was having a religious delusion that he thought he was God and that I was the Virgin Mary and pregnant with the next savior of the world. So he was trying to protect me from demons on the floor and thought he was, helping me. But he was so big, I couldn't really get out from under him. And to get away, I had to pretend to be Virgin Mary to escape. And after that, I went back to work and pretended like nothing had happened for a year until I just couldn't get off the bed anymore. I was watching the show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. That was kind of my happy pleasure, guilty pleasure at the time, since I was so depressed. And I started recognizing some of the traits in the main character and myself. And I thought, well, maybe this isn't just depression. And so I went to a psychiatrist, and after a 1-hour intake, that's when he diagnosed me with borderline personality disorder. And now I've been in therapy. That's been 7 years ago. And since then, it's kind of evolved to different diagnoses, including complex PTSD and some complex developmental attachment trauma issues. But I have had success in treatment with different types. What I found for me, different types of therapies, they've all taught me something slightly different. So I've done dialectical behavior therapy, internal family systems, EMDR, and I've also done some treatments like TMS and neurofeedback for depression and insomnia. So really adding all these things together, I'm happy to say I haven't made a suicide attempt in 5 years since that 2018 incident, the aftermath of that. But after all of the therapy, I'm happy to say I'm in remission at the moment. So that's when I've started working on some of those other projects that I mentioned to you in my bio, like the app that I'm building.
Cool. Now, you wrote a story for the book. If people are listening now and aren't aware of it, we're creating a book of unfiltered letters from around the world from people who suffer and loved ones of people who suffer from BPD. It was titled I Wasn't Born Too Much. In that story, you wrote how your brain was trying to keep you safe using rules when you were 6 years old. Could you take us a little bit deeper into that?
Sure. Something that I learned in therapy was to really pause between an event and my reaction. So now, a lot of the time when I'm having a reaction, what I'll do is kind of try to, in that pause, figure out, if that is related to anything that I've learned about myself in all these different years of therapy. So, for instance, I do realize that I have a push-pull type pattern, that I, want to be close to somebody, but if they get close to me, then I sometimes test them to really see if they love me. And when I started thinking back to, how does this kind of map to how I grew up, it was the love around me when I was little was very conditional. And so if I made a misstep, for instance, if I cried, I was told that the next thing that happened to me was my fault. So it's really understanding that my brain learns to kind of keep people at a distance because being close to the people around me wasn't particularly safe.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now, you also asked what happens to a child when people see something is wrong and nobody steps in. Why do you think that silence from adults hurts just as much as the trauma itself?
Yeah, I would say that is still what I struggle with the most. It's not what's happened to me particularly, all those events were shocking and traumatic. It was more of the fact that people could see how chaotic it was in the house. My dad was violent outside of the house too, so I know neighbors saw that and felt okay letting a child live in that environment. So that's what I still struggle with the most is anger towards those people. And that's when I started writing my Substack, was to get that out just a little bit. And that's why I named it the Unclenching Project, because it feels like all of these events plus all of the people ignoring said events, my body has been tightly clenched all these years, and this has been an exercise of me learning to let all of it go. But to your question, that is the area I still struggle with the most, is how people can look away from things like that. And
Oh, look, yeah. I can relate to that. I had a mother who's very bad bipolar, and the fact she would run outside naked, neighbours would ignore it. Neighbours would totally ignore it, so they wouldn't talk to us anymore. It's just a crazy house there. It's like, oh God, really?
But it leaves the kid alone in that. Like, I understand not wanting to be friends with the adult, right? Like, my dad was violent. They didn't want to be friends with them. But you know that that child is going to live in that house with that adult you're afraid of. So how do you think it feels to that child's nervous system? They're terrorized.
I always like to talk about when people were diagnosed, but you're totally different to me because I've always been an open person. But I feel I was only diagnosed in my later years because the world's changed, because people don't communicate. There's no community anymore. So I believe I had it a long time ago. It's just more noticeable because most of my reactions that I have to people are because they've done something wrong to me and they're not communicating properly to me. So that's, in a way, as you know, with BPD Raw, I celebrate the traits that we have with our emotions. Because especially you work for Emotions Matter, because emotions do matter. There's nothing wrong with feeling stronger. What's wrong with that? What are your thoughts on that?
I as a pharmacist, and I love genetics too. I used to work in the genetics lab growing up. I definitely like Marshall Linehan's biosocial model. And so I do think that some of us are just wired to be more sensitive, and that's okay. Like you said, there's nothing to be ashamed of about that. And part of the reaction is part of the reason we feel so bad is we're just taught our reactions are wrong. But like, look at me growing up. I was told not to cry when I found out I was adopted, and was told my birth mom didn't want me. Like, that's a normal reaction. And so I really think, like you're saying, a lot of it is the community just not understanding that some people are innately wired to be a little more intense on either side of the spectrum, but their environment also reinforced those things, and it taught us a lot of really bad lessons about humans. So
Yeah.
think
And
it
you
all
talked
comes
about,
together.
and it's great to actually speak to someone who's done TMS.
Oh, have you done TMS? No one
Yes,
knows
yes.
what that is when I tell them about it.
Yeah, okay, so basically, I went to the deep at the end and it just went away. So basically, TMS worked while I was on it. All the time I was on it. I went from 5 hours sleep a night, nightmares every night of my life, to no nightmares, 8 hours sleep.
Wow.
So I actually, because you can buy the machines in the States.
Oh, I
You
didn't
can
realize
actually,
that.
yeah, you can. But to get into Australia, oh my God, it's so difficult because I just worked out it works while I'm using it. But if you use it for a certain amount of time, you don't need to use it again. And as a
Yeah.
pharmacist, I was going to ask you questions. You understand brain chemistry more than most. There's been so much talk lately about psychedelics drugs and drugs like MDMA used for trauma and PTSD. How do you feel about MDMA or psychedelic assisted therapy?
I think it's a huge disservice that studies weren't allowed for many years. We could be far advanced in this if our society didn't restrict that research. I'm happy to see that there are some places that I've been even volunteering with, like MAPS. It's an assisted psychedelic study group that's like run by doctors. I'm trying to support them to have those studies so I can reliably speak to how safe or efficacious it is. Like right now, I can't really tell you as a pharmacist how often it will work for people, but that's, because those studies weren't done. So I feel pretty strongly that we should be studying it in people that have these issues. And the research that I'm seeing coming out of some of the like PTSD veteran studies seems to be promising.
Yeah, because I read somewhere, and I can't actually remember where, when we self-medicate, it's our brain wanting that, calling for that drug. I still do it today, though my dealer has stopped. I have high anxiety, and I'm a gay man, so I can relate to the LGBT community. But I was abused as a child, so I have difficulty relating to men and opening up. But when I took MDMA, like I'd see other people take it, you could notice off their face. Me, I was just bright, bubbly, open. It was a game changer for me.
I've
It
heard
changed,
that
though.
from people.
Yeah, I'd still have the effects because it's a street drug. You still get the feeling ill at the beginning and wanting to vomit and stuff. They are nice ones, but once it hit me, it's like, whoa, okay, man, this is my world. The world is my oyster now. But then it goes away. They are doing trials in Australia, but at the moment, because my mother was bipolar, it counts me out because they're worried about the mania.
Yeah.
But they're going to change that eventually, and they've told me that will eventually change. But it's like, I'm 58 years old. I would know how drugs affect me. And no, I know that So it's like, come on, give me the MDMA, give me the MDMA therapy. But yeah, it was a game changer for me. TMS, yeah, the other things never work. Either I went through all the therapies, but because my major thing is trust. I will trust someone straight away, but as soon as they get closer to me, the trust wanes. So therapy could never last. I would think, yes, they're doing something good for me, and then I didn't trust them anymore. It's like, nah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So none of the. I just have to do my own journey. And at the moment, with helping people, that's what's working. Now, I've had some things with Emotions Matter. Tell the people what Emotions Matter is all about, because there's, of course, it's US based, and this goes all around the world. A lot of people don't have this sort of thing in their country, especially in Australia. Tell us about your work with Emotions Matter.
Sure. I found Emotions Matter about 3 years ago now. The DBT therapy, it had a group component with it that wasn't covered by insurance, so I was paying for it out of pocket for a while, and then I couldn't. So I found Emotions Matter by searching for peer support groups for people that had borderline personality disorder. And I saw this organization that offered free support groups, and I thought, what is this about? No one offers anything like this for free. So I attended some of the support groups, and I had been through group DBT several times by then and just fell in love with their program because they're doing kind of some of the same work that I found in those DVD classes that were like $600 a month. And so I really then got more involved with volunteering for them, and just a few months ago went to their walk in New York City. So they did a pretty good fundraiser for some campaigns they're doing this year. They're doing an art show, and they're doing a BPD at Work publication for people that, struggle in the workplace, because I've struggled there myself in the past. I tend to hide it a little better at work, but still sometimes I can use that support. So I just got really excited. I met one of the founders, and she told me a lot about her story, why she created the organization, and it just felt so supportive on a place that people weren't stigmatized, and they could talk to people that have the disorder too, because the support groups are for people with lived experience, so everyone in there will get where you're coming from.
Yeah. So you've been married quite a long time, and that's very rare that I've heard in the BPD space, whether it's people are not speaking up. But how does your marriage work? When you split and stuff like that, how does your partner cope?
I would say one thing that helps us is we're both very forgiving towards the other, but I have sometimes rarely split on him in the past. I would say he does have a sort of unusual ability to separate Jamie from the BPD itself. He has a background in psychology and neurobiology himself, and is also a pharmacist, so the education helps, but we also developed, as I was in therapy, I developed some systems to not lash out towards him when I was having those emotions. So now we do things like, we have a little code. If we need 30 minutes, it means I love you and I'm not abandoning you, but I need 30 minutes away. So if any one of us says that, we don't take it personally. So building things in like that I knew my brain would not interpret as abandonment helped me a lot. And so I would say for anybody with BPD, if they can help their partners with that kind of cheat sheet, it can go a long way.
Yeah, because I've never understood, because we get labels like we're too much, we're needy and stuff. But when it comes to relationships, I have never met anyone who said, I want this flash car, I want all these fantastic holidays, I want picket fence and everything. How could, and in a normal relationship, that's what people want these days. We don't want that. So how are we needy? I've always thought about that. It's like, no, we're not needy at all. We're probably, and I would gather that your relationship is full of love and you still have that love today.
Yes.
Yes, and that's what BPD is all about. If you meet the right person, there's no stopping you. And look, to be honest with you, you do have this glow about you when I talk about your relationship. You've got this smile and this glow about you. And this is quite possible for everyone.
Yeah, all of the things that I've done, I think are possible for anybody with this disorder. They were harder, sure. I mean, pharmacy school was very stressful, but I'm just a person, so that's really why I wanted to share my stories, to help maybe other people feel a little more hopeful.
Yeah. Now, if someone is sitting here listening who has just got diagnosed with BPD and feels completely lost or broken, what's the main thing you'd want to know today?
Fuck anyone who tries to make you heal on a timeline that isn't yours.
There you go. And I love people using the F word. Love the F bomb. Love the F bomb.
Good. I wasn't sure if I was going to get edited out of that one.
No. We don't need that. People love that. People love that. Now, I have one last question for you. Now,
okay.
At BPD Raw, we flip the script and we ask something different. People
Okay.
normally ask, what would you say to your younger self? I want you to tell me, what would your younger self say to you today?
You kick ass.
Yes, love it. Yes, love it.
I will
Thank
say,
you.
IFS has helped me a lot with feeling that inner child's love. Internal family systems, a great therapy for that.
Yeah, never lose your inner child. Never lose that. And having BPD, that's one of the major things that I think is a superpower. We keep that child alive.
Yep.
Anyway, Jamie, look, I thank you very much for coming on the couch with me. And no matter where you're sitting, what you're surviving, or how loud that storm gets today, remember, you don't have to carry it alone. You're real, you're human, and you're allowed to take up space just as you are. Thanks for sitting on the couch today, and we'll see you next time.